What if your regrets aren't meant to break you? What if they're meant to guide you in this next half of life? Welcome to the Redefining Midlife podcast. I'm Jo Clark and I'm so glad you're here. And this is a podcast for women who are ready to break free from outdated stereotypes, rediscover themselves, and embrace the endless opportunities that midlife brings. Each week, I'll share expert advice, actionable strategies, and inspiring conversations with incredible women who are redefining what it means to thrive in midlife and beyond. From health and wellness to reigniting your purpose and passions, this is your go-to podcast for feeling empowered, supported, and seen. And midlife isn't the end. It's your time to shine, rewrite your story, and create a life that you truly love. So let's get started. Welcome back to episode 161. And today we're talking about something that's often hard to admit, and that's regret. Now, a regret is like that quiet weight that can just sit in the background of our lives. And it whispers things to us like, oh, if only I'd done that, or why didn't I say yes when I had the chance? Regret can feel heavy, but it can also hold incredible wisdom if we know how to listen. And for so many women I speak to, whether it's through my mentoring work or in-person workshops and events, or perhaps even this podcast, regret is something that many carry quietly. And sometimes it's about the choices that they'd made in the past. Sometimes it's about the ones that they didn't. And if we're all honest with ourselves, we've been there too. Maybe you wish you'd taken better care of yourself earlier in life, or spent more time with family, or had the courage to leave that job or that relationship or that version of yourself that no longer fit. Now, regret shows us what mattered most. And it's not proof that we failed. It's actually reflecting that we've grown. For me, regret became something deeply personal when my own mum passed away. And she was a beautiful, kind-hearted woman. But like so many women of her generation, she lived a life that was bound by completely different social rules for women. And that meant that she carried many regrets, like not having the opportunity to follow the career that she wanted when she was a young woman, or the regret of not being able to travel like she wanted to travel overseas to see the different sights and sounds of different countries. These things were always the dreams that she'd had, but she never got a chance to do them. And even though she wasn't able to experience her dreams, she was always so encouraging for me, for her own daughter, to follow her dreams and her passions, for me to not just wait for someday. And watching her pass with so many unspoken wishes and unfulfilled dreams, it really did change me. And it's actually one of the reasons that I do the work that I do today, supporting women in midlife to rediscover themselves, to live with intention, and then to write a story and live a story that they're proud of. I think I can safely say that none of us want to reach the end of our lives and realize that we were too afraid, too busy, or too unsure to truly live the life that we wanted to live. We think of regret as something that we have to avoid or something that makes us weak or stuck in the past. But if we can turn that around, we can find that regret can actually be one of our greatest teachers. It's feedback from your life. It's that gap between who you once were and who you've become. When you can say, I wish I'd done that differently, what you're really saying is, I see things more clearly now. I've learned something important about myself. And I see that as growth. And of course, that growth sometimes hurts a little, it stings, but it's also where healing begins and change can happen. So if you're listening today and you're holding on to regret about a missed decision, an opportunity, about how you showed up in the past, I want you to know this. This is something, if not all of us experience at some point in our life. You aren't alone in this experience. And you've also got the chance to use that regret as a doorway to something completely new. Now, I thought of something else just about a regret, just about as I was about to hit the record button. Regret can also be sneaky. I was thinking about how it can just sit quietly in the background and it can really colour how you feel about yourself and your life. And it might sound like, oh, if only I'd started earlier, or I should have known better, or it's too late now. That kind of thinking will keep you stuck in yesterday and keep you focused on what can't be changed instead of what can be changed. And I'm thinking when I was doing this and preparing for today, I was thinking about a mentoring client who carried regret for years because she didn't speak up at work. She'd stayed small to keep the peace. She didn't want to rock the boat and upset people, especially her bosses. But when she started unpacking that regret, she realised it wasn't about the past at all. It was about her belief that her voice didn't matter. And once she was able to see that, everything shifted. Regret had been trying to show her something all along, that her opinion was valuable, that her ideas deserved space, and that it was never too late to start using her voice. And that's the power of reframing regret. There's a book I often mention in my mentoring and in my workshops, and I'm pretty sure I've spoken about it in past episodes. And the book's called The 5 Regrets of the Dying by Bronnie Ware. Now, Bronnie was an Australian palliative care nurse, and she spent years caring for people at the end of their lives. She began to notice that the same themes kept on coming up when dying people reflected back on their lives. The same regrets popping up time and time again. And when I first read her book, it really struck a chord with me. Because one of those regrets was, I wish I had the courage to live a life true to myself, not the lives others expected of me. That was my mum's life, and that one always stops me in my tracks and makes me think. So think about it for yourself. How often do we put our dreams on hold because we're trying to be who others need us to be? Need to be a good mum, a reliable partner, a dependable friend or colleague, and then somewhere in that mix, we lose sight of us. Now, another top regret that Bronnie wrote about was this one. I wish I hadn't worked so hard. And isn't that one relatable? Because we spend so many years striving, keeping everything afloat, ticking all of those boxes and doing what's expected. And then one day we pause and we realize the moments that we missed weren't those great big milestones. They were often the small, ordinary, everyday ones, the ones that you can just seemingly put under the carpet. Now, those regrets, they aren't there to make us feel guilty. They're the gentle reminders of what really matters in our lives, that we don't need to wait until the end to learn from them, because we can act on them now. We can make a different choice when we wake up each day. And here's the undeniable truth. You can't go back and rewrite the past, but you can change what it means to you. You can take all of those lessons and you can turn them into wisdom, and then you can make some different choices. And you can start today. And when I work with women who feel stuck in the weight of regret, we often begin with 3 simple steps. Firstly, just acknowledge it. Bring that regret into light. Say it out loud or write it down. I wish I'd done that differently. That honestly alone is absolutely freeing. And then find the lesson in that regret. Ask yourself, what does this regret teach me about what's important to me? Now, it might show you that you value connection or creativity or courage. And then finally, apply it looking forward. Turn that insight into one small action. So if you regret not taking better care of your health, start today with a short walk or a nourishing meal. If you regret not saying yes to opportunities, just start saying yes to something small this week. Maybe it's a catch up with somebody or a new hobby or a class that lights you up. It's these small steps that can lead to the big changes in your lives. And that's how you rewrite your story. Not by changing what's already happened, but by changing what comes next. This whole idea of not waiting or taking action now has been on my mind a lot lately. So it's actually one of the reasons I've been putting together something brand new that I'm almost finished creating. It was something I was going to do, in another year or so, but I thought, why not start now? And it's just a self-paced program called Rediscover You. Over the years, through all of the workshops that I've done, the events and the mentoring, I've spoken and had the pleasure of speaking with hundreds of women. And I just can't tell you how many times I've heard the same thing. I feel like I've lost touch with who I am, or I've been so busy taking care of everyone else, I forgot about me. And I completely understand and totally get that feeling because I've been there too. So after hearing these stories again and again, I knew that I wanted to create something that women could do in their own time. A gentle starting point to help them reconnect with themselves, to reflect on what matters, and then to begin shaping what's next for them. But this time with a whole lot more clarity and a whole lot more confidence. I can't wait to share more about this with you soon, because change doesn't start a complete overhaul. With a complete overhaul, I should say. It starts with rediscovering you. And that's what really this episode is all about. And I'm sharing my stories on how I do that as well. So it's learning from your stories and beginning a new one that feels aligned with the woman that you are now. Because in midlife, you've lived enough life to know what matters to you and then what doesn't matter. You've lived enough to see that things rarely go to plan and that the moments that break you are the ones that can also shape you. Hey, you can let regret become a wall, or you can let it become a doorway. Because you can't change the past, like I said before, but you can change your relationship with it. And we know you did the best that you could with what you knew then, but now you know more. So you can live differently. And that's really powerful to remember, that this next chapter of life isn't about chasing perfection. It's all about living with intention. And it's about saying, I'm proud of who I am now, and I'm choosing to create what comes next. Because like I always say in these episodes, you are the author of your story and you hold the pen to your next chapter. So today I want to leave you with this thought. What if your regrets aren't meant to break you? What if they're meant to guide you in this next half of life? What if they're showing you the way forward towards a life that's truer to who you are now? So take a moment to reflect. If there's just one regret that you could release today, what would it be? And what tiny step could you take to rewrite that story for your future self? Now, I hope this conversation has helped you to reflect on what regrets that you might have and given you the reminder that only you can do something about it. And sometimes those regrets don't have to be great big ones. They can be the small ones that if you don't do it now, like my example, if I don't do it now, I'm going to regret further down the track. So I look forward to joining you again next week. Let's focus on changing our regrets into something that we're proud of and that's going to shape our future. Until next week, take care. Thanks so much for spending your time with me today. I hope you feel inspired to make the next chapter of your life the best one yet. And remember to share this episode with someone else who would love it and connect with me on Instagram or LinkedIn at Jo Clark Coaching. All the links and the details from today's episode are in the show notes or at joclarkcoaching.com. And if you enjoyed this episode, please follow or subscribe this show on your favorite podcast app and leave a 5-star rating and review. This helps more midlife women find these empowering conversations. I can't wait to chat with you next week. Until then, take care and keep creating a life that you love.